What do poor people know that rich people don't? Story 1. Money cannot buy happiness, but the lack of money sure does prevent happiness. Money bought my happiness when I had it. Buying experiences makes people happy. Buying stuff doesn't necessarily make a person happy. What you do with your money determines your happiness. Saying money doesn't buy happiness is propaganda from the rich meant to pacify the poor. Money is literally everything. Everything's better with money. Money is safety. Money is a second and third chance. Money finds love. Don't think you'd have the same chances broke as someone with even a few dollars. Anyone saying differently has never been truly poor. I definitely understand the saying money doesn't buy happiness, but when you say that as a response to someone talking about how hard it is to be poor, you're just being a bad person. You have no right to tell anybody that money isn't everything, and then go home to your flat screen TV, watch your favorite show on Netflix, and eat a nice hot meal. Talk about being oblivious. Story 2. The feeling of watching all your friends go on a field trip without you because your parents couldn't afford it. I remember that so many times in elementary. I remember in first grade my family couldn't afford the $20 for me to go on an ice skating field trip. While my class left, I was sent to sit and do homework in a 4th grade class. I just sat at a desk and set to the side and was mostly ignored or treated as if I was there for being bad. It was a sad day that sticks out to me. This awakens so many aggravating memories. Having to sit through everyone talking about the amazing adventures they got to go on during spring break or summer. Then it got to my turn and I got to tell everybody again how my fun-filled summer was spent at home. In school, when I was in band, it was announced that we would be going on a 3-day trip that would take us across the country. I was so excited, and I never got to go. In order to go, we had to go door to door in the neighborhoods around the school and sell 10 gift cards for $10 each, giving us $100. This was easily done. I was so excited that I was actually going to travel. Then we get done and head back to class where the teacher greets us with this: "Good job, everyone. Now what you have to do next is go home and get your parents to write us a check for the remaining $1,500. My glee transformed into anger and deep sadness. There was no way we could afford that, and apparently I was the only one. It always astonished me that there were kids whose families could just fork out any amount of money without even thinking about it, and it made me mad that the teachers and other staff never considered that there were some that couldn't. I never understood why they make the kids that can't go just sit in an empty room. You get sat in a room with one teacher to watch you. It really does feel like you got put in an hours-long detention, and to be honest, the teacher watching you acts like it's detention too." Story 3. How long does it take for the power company to shut your lights off if you're late on the bill? My grandfather quit his job at the energy company soon after they promoted him to the shutting poor people's gas off department. Somehow cutting people off from essential service was not something he enjoyed. How strange. Life tip: the pandemic has changed a lot of companies' policies. So if you have a huge bill due soon, contact your provider and ask to set up a payment plan. Most companies actually love payment plans because they can tack fees onto that, which gives them more money in the end. But at the moment, it can be a little saver to pay $50 a month instead of $400 up front. Story 4. There were a few times when I was younger at the end of the month when my parents would give us food and say, "Oh, we ate earlier," despite not seeing them eat, and their stomachs would rumble all night. They grew up in extreme poverty, so it makes sense. They made us meals, got our favorite snacks, juice, etc. at the expense of themselves. Not often, but when they felt the pinch, or even thought they might, they prioritized us. Even today, I'm nearly 30 years old, and they deny they ever did it, probably because they know we'll never have to make that sacrifice and don't want to burden us with the knowledge that they did. I'm incredibly grateful for my parents. I didn't grow up dirt poor, but we definitely didn't have extra. I still don't know how, but my mom managed to scrounge together the money for me to get piano lessons. A family friend gifted us her old piano, which I still own today, so I could practice on a real piano and save my mom the expense of buying a keyboard for me. A few months ago, I thought about what kid me knew of our circumstances back then and realized that she definitely made sacrifices to let me do that. So I texted her thanking her for it. She thanked me for the consideration and the appreciation, but still outright refused to tell me what she did to make it possible. I'm 29. I don't think she'll ever spill the beans. Story 5. Renting instead of buying is super expensive. My parents basically bought my brother a house. He was kind of a ne'er-do-well. and didn't work for years while my mom insisted on paying all his bills, including child support, getting his house refinanced, etc. When my mom died, she was the financial guru. We took stock of what investments they had left, and there was none. She spent it all on him. Now my dad has to really watch his finances because they spent it all on the prodigal son. I, the younger sister, begged my mom numerous times to just help me with a down payment or something, but she refused, which I should have had myself together better. Ultimately, it's their money and my fault. I know that. I'm not owed anything. I get it. That's why I don't bring it up to my dad or brother, but I'm still renting and now I can't afford a house. I'm finally out of a decade-long toxic abusive relationship so I can start fixing my credit, but I pretty much just cry every day. Don't get me wrong, I love my family in spite of the flaws, but it just hurts. They set my brother up with generational wealth and basically told me to kick rocks. It's not wrong to feel hurt by this. It sucks when parents don't treat all their kids the same. Even if you know realistically they have a reason to treat you differently, that doesn't make it feel any less weird. Your parents may think they're preparing you for life when they're really just making you feel like you deserve less. Story 6. The length to which disposable items can be reused. Growing up, my mom would buy one value pack of the cheapest disposable razors and make that pack last years. I remember being a teenager and seeing shaving cream for women in the store, and I had no clue that was even a thing because we used bar soap. Also, every Christmas my mom would buy a value pack of toothbrushes and each of us kids would get one. We wouldn't get another toothbrush until next Christmas. That was our toothbrush for the whole year or until we happened to be able to go to the dentist, which I don't remember happening very often. Yeah, don't you love how American health insurance doesn't find dentists or eye doctors necessary for your health? Story 7. Rich people tend to say you can't buy happiness with money. It's not all about the money, but you can buy warmth, a place to stay in, food, healthcare, fresh water, and the opportunity to shower and clean yourself. You can buy a car, a bike, or a bus ticket to get a possible workplace. You can buy education. You can buy free time in the form of vacation or activities, or even just being able to take time off work. In a way, you can also buy a certain status and respect in a community, because look at the disrespect homeless people face every day. It is all about money. And yeah, maybe you can't exactly buy happiness, but you can buy everything you need for a decent life. You can buy everything that will be a part of being happy and healthy. We don't have equal chances if you're sitting in your $1 million house and I live in a one-room rental apartment. We never have. Rich people have so much money on their hands that they spend it on everything they have, till they reach the things they can't buy. So for them, it's not all about the money because money is all they have. They never learned how to get the stuff they want without money. Poor people find that they can get a lot of stuff without money, with barter and other trades. So for them, it's all about the money because money is what they need to get their basic necessities. Story 8. We don't have the same rights as rich people. I mean, yeah, the same laws apply to everyone, but if you're poor, you can't afford lawyers and you're not able to skip work to go to court. Landlords and bosses know this and will drag any procedure as long as possible until you quit. We don't even really have the same laws. When you think about it, as a wise person once said, if the penalty for breaking the law is a fine, then it is only a law for the poor. Jeff Bezos paid $212,000 in parking tickets in 6 months rather than having his contractors register with the city properly. He stole someone else's access to that street, and it cost him essentially nothing compared to his net worth, so he has no reason not to do it again. I'm not saying I want jail time for parking tickets, but in the Scandi countries they tie fines to income, leading to those $100,000 speeding tickets for the extremely wealthy and affordable ones for the poor. The end goal being that both speeding tickets take the same percentage of income from each person. That's a smarter system. The amount of power a manager or boss has over a poor person is unreal compared to the power they hold over people with money. I remember being terrified of my managers when I was working minimum wage jobs because I was so poor and I would be homeless in weeks of losing my job. Make sure that you know your worth. As long as you're nice and do all of your work right, they have no reason to fire you for defending yourself. If they try to threaten you, let them know that they can't fire you for something that isn't a fireable offense. If they do, that makes it way easier to get unemployment, which they don't want since it looks bad on them. Let them know that what they're threatening is illegal, and they won't threaten you again. If they really hate this, they'll fire you anyways, and you can use that to get unemployment. The best way to do this is to have them fire you over text, so that you can prove what they said. And if they ever say, "I consider this your resignation," tell them you don't resign since they have no right to assume you did. They have to let you go, or you have to quit. Saying they consider this your resignation is a way for them to fire you while writing down that you quit. You can't use them for unemployment that way. You have to know the system to fight it. Story 9. when you have to choose which bill you're going to pay. My mom told me once to skip one that won't shut you off right away. Internet providers will usually disconnect you soon after a missed payment, but utilities are more likely to wait until a couple of missed payments have passed. Story 10. How much confidence you lose when you're poor. It seems like everyone around you looks down on you. You keep doubting yourself for no good reason. This is an underrated aspect of poverty. These days, if you're poor, you also tend to be single, not attracting any dates or friends, not socially well connected, and not invited to dinner parties, outings, vacations, anything lifestyle related, etc. I'm 40 years old and I've never been invited to a dinner party. Over years, your confidence and social skills atrophy. Your lack of money keeps you in rags and you sense that people look at you like a bum. I see people my age with their social groups, multi-bedroom homes, kids graduating school, and they seem like actual adults, while I'm off to the side in my hovel feeling like a kid that never had the chance to grow up. I feel like this is a lasting one. I'm comfortable these days, but the lingering feeling of being jobless and penniless is always in the back of my mind, even with a safety net, emergency fund, and family help. Asking for help was almost never an option, even if the resources were there, because you felt like you didn't deserve it. Story 11. Life is flimsy. Most people are only a couple of small choices away from losing everything. The poor have less choices and can often see rock bottom from where they are. Some run from it, and others resign themselves to letting the fall happen. The word flimsy is so appropriate. Great point about letting the fall happen. I think sometimes people at the bottom make bad choices because they absolutely cannot stand another day of waiting for the other shoe to drop. You actually feel less helpless in the middle of combat situations than you do waiting. The waiting is the worst. Story 12. How to choose between medicine and food. Self-righteous people like to say if you just eat healthy, you won't need all that medicine to feel better. They also like to say that healthy food is just as cheap as unhealthy food. This is absolutely not true. I used to weigh almost 400 pounds. I would spend about $250 a month on groceries. Then I started eating healthier, fresh meats and veggies, non-processed foods, and the grocery bill went up to $400 a month. It wasn't until I was around 250 pounds that the grocery bill started getting a little cheaper just from being a healthier weight. My clothes were also cheaper. When you are poor, things like Hamburger Helper, mac and cheese, processed food, pasta, etc. are super cheap. They're also super high in calories and low on nutritional value, but it's what you can afford to keep the pantry stocked with. Think of how many poor people are also obese. It's not because they spend all their money on food and they overeat. It's because that meal has 3 times the calories of a healthy meal, with half the nutritional value, because it's what they could afford to buy. Even things like snacks. Sure, I can spend a bunch of money on things like fresh fruit to have as snacks, but that will go bad in a few days. You know what won't go bad and will make my money stretch further? Snacks like chips and Pop-Tarts. Eating healthy is a luxury that many can't afford. That's one thing I never understood as a kid. Story 13. When your parents are lying to you, saying they're full when they're not so that you can have the last bite. I remember eating the last bit of bread we had and my parents both watching me. My dad started poaching turkeys not long after. It didn't really sink in until I was older. That might be something else rich people don't know, whether their parents would do absolutely anything for them when push came to shove. Yeah, there are things that if you grew up poor but in a loving home, you don't understand until you're older. I've had moments breaking down crying when I realized what my parents did for me to try to make me happy as a kid. My dad destroyed his knee at work, and we had to live about 2 years before he was able to get on disability. So many little things I remember but didn't understand until I grew up. I would do anything for my parents because they already did it for me my whole life. That is one thing poor families have that rich families do not have. Knowing whether your parents would commit crimes for your healthiness and happiness, and the parents knowing that their kids would give them all the money they had if it was life or death. I mean, it's messed up that you learn that the hard way, but at the end of the day, you're always assured that someone else would do absolutely anything for you. Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day. Story 14. Drinking water stops the hunger for a short while. If you get so hungry that you get dizzy and shaky, going to sleep is the best solution, with the added bonus that you don't feel hungry for a while after you wake up. I've gone several days without food on a number of occasions. Just tap water and sleep was my favorite meal. Story 15. How expensive it is to be poor. I think about this a lot. Making more money equals saving more money, buying bulk, paying cash for a car or house, buying high-efficiency appliances, buying solar panels. Working from home saves money on gas, car maintenance, and sometimes insurance. On the other hand, some people aren't able to afford a car or a rideshare, and their employment opportunities are limited to where they can travel by public transportation and the transportation schedule. When you need to take public transit, you're dependent on the bus or train schedule, and places take much longer to get to than they would by car. For example, it takes me an hour to get to work by public transportation, but it only takes 20 minutes to get there with an Uber. Less free time means less time to make more money. Story 16. We know way too much, like putting water in shampoo or body wash so there's more of it, eating the same exact meal day after day, especially at the end of the month, walking long distances because you can't afford transportation, watching friends go on vacations when the most you got is going to visit grandma again, never being able to celebrate birthdays, parents promising to buy you something but you never end up getting it, dad repairing the same shoes again and again just so his children can have slightly better things, mom skipping meals and lying about it, spending the hot days without a fan because the electricity bill will be too much, giving your parents the money you got as a gift from relatives so it can be used to pay bills, pushing yourself to study hard and overwork yourself so you can get a scholarship because otherwise you're not going to get that education. These things are how a lower middle class family works in a third world country. My dad got scammed out of so much of his pension money and things aren't going well. Inflation makes us helpless. I'm so glad I got a scholarship for university and never have to pay for education. That's the best I could do for my poor parents. Sorry for ranting. I had to pay rent today. So the rest of this month, I'll be having the same free meal from my campus. Story 17. What it's like to feel guilt when you're offered a treat by your parents and you know they can't really afford it, so you pretend you don't want it. My situation isn't quite the same, but similar. My sister is 8, and while not rich, my mom and dad are not poor either. They were poor though when I was 8. I knew how expensive certain toys were and didn't even ask for them, but my little sister thinks money is endless or something. Story 18. There is no family to help you out financially in tough situations. No inheritance waiting for you. Nothing at all. When my mother dies, I get to deal with the costs of her cremation and then getting rid of her belongings. That's the inheritance I'll get. My neighbor is great at not understanding any of this. Her father is some ex-British Air Force head honcho on a massive pension or something, and he's absolutely loaded. I don't hang out with her anymore because I got sick of her, you know what you should do, business ideas. I had to spell it out one day that I can't just up and start a business with no money, and even if I had startup capital, I had no safety net from my family like she did. She didn't fully grasp this. I had to literally show her the inside of my wallet and that I had $60 in the bank. The look on her face was both priceless and heartbreaking for me. It's like she had literally never met anyone with no money before. Story 19. What it's like to not be able to pay for a surgery that you need and living in constant pain because of it. I'm in San Diego. We have the privilege of going to Tijuana for procedures. It's a pain and can be confusing or scary at times, but it's something. I don't know what I would do without that option. Story 20. The pressure of living until the next paycheck with no safety net if anything unexpected happens. Unfortunately, my neighbors are going through this right now with a 4-month-old baby. Apparently, the husband has a massive addiction problem, didn't tell his wife, and was hiding final notices and stuff like that from her. It all came to a head Friday and they got evicted. Thankfully, they're in a shelter temporarily, but my entire office is literally filled with all of their belongings up to the ceiling for the while until they can get housed. It's not his wife's fault, and she was extremely kind to me when I first moved here not knowing anyone, but I have a feeling she won't be staying in this country much longer and will be going on her own with her son back to her family. They have sold me a few of their possessions. I didn't really need them, and I overpaid, but they really needed the money, and now I have 2 identical TVs, a CD player, and a PS3. They can have it all back if they get housed, but otherwise I'll just sell it again and give them the cash. I'm a very frugal person myself, but having been really poor for half my life, I can't stand watching this happen to them. Story 21. Your paycheck is already gone before you get paid. Yeah, I'm basically a middleman on payday. Story 22. The fear of being poor again once you get out of the vicious cycle. I lived on the streets for 5 years. Now I have a decent job and a place to live. I still live way below my means and save any money possible because I don't ever want to be put in a situation where I go that low again. I have enough to travel and upgrade my crappy stuff, but I just don't. I hoard my money because of my PTSD. That fear of losing everything is a tough thing to live with. While I was never out of a home, I spent so many years scraping by only to be knocked back down every time I started climbing. Growing up, I was a kid who couldn't save $1 if my life depended on it, but as an adult, I'm extremely frugal. It's nice that it taught me to be responsible with my money, but I'm having to learn to spend some money to enjoy life once in a while without feeling extreme guilt or anxiety. Story 23. How to be hungry. Not what it feels like to be hungry, but how to live your life even though you're hungry all the time. I should add that the chosen situation of being on a diet is not the same as being hungry and not being able to do anything about it, not even a little bit. I'd also add chronic pain or health conditions. Not that the rich don't get this as well, but when you're poor, sometimes you have to prioritize basics over health. Painkillers and treatments are too expensive when you don't have your utilities or rent paid. Story 24. It can be cyclic. Low income means old secondhand cars, which means poor reliability, high maintenance costs, and unreliable work attendance. Car difficulty discourages longer commutes or those without public transport alternatives, further restricting employment opportunities. Limited or unstable employment worsens income and prevents investments in more reliable cars, etc. The difficulty is finding an exit opportunity to end the loop. Unreliable transportation and the cost of gas and maintenance were the worst parts of being poor for me. It's incredibly demoralizing to have to beg for rides or walk long distances because your car sometimes isn't operable. I survived decades of that alone and have built a comfortable life for myself. I now have a safe and reliable car that I can afford to maintain, and I don't take it for granted. Cars are traps for Americans in poverty. It sucks up so much of your income, and yet your income depends on having a functioning, reliable one. The fact that the auto industry transformed this country to the point that a personal vehicle is a basic necessity makes me insanely angry. Not to mention, driving a beater car makes you a target for traffic stops. You're most likely to have an expired registration or insurance. It took me a decade to pay off a couple of traffic tickets because I couldn't afford to repair my car to pass inspection, meaning I couldn't register it. They weren't expensive repairs, just several small ones. The tickets were $300 a piece. That's $1,000 right there, including the cost of the repairs and getting my car registered. It's punishment for being poor. It's like swimming in quicksand. I've always wondered how much easier being poor would be in a walkable city. You don't have to starve just because you can't find a ride. You don't have to spend your entire paycheck on Uber rides to get there. It just sounds way less stressful. I would love to live with the reassurance that I'll still have my livelihood after my car breaks down. Story 25. Being homeless. There is nothing like it. To me, it means that every single person you know has given up on you. Parents, siblings, friends, everyone. Homelessness taught me that I have no one. Maybe more importantly, it taught me to have others' backs even when they don't want it. When I was homeless, it really wasn't that they had given up on me. They just didn't have anything to give. My mother was already living in a camper. My dad had my 2 teenage sisters and my disabled brother. I lived in my dad's van for a while because it was all he had to offer. Story 26. The exhaustion. Working on your feet all day only to come home to clean and cook because you can't afford convenience or to go out. Exhaustion from researching more ways to stretch food, make more money, etc. Then doing the work. Exhausted from multiple jobs, walking everywhere, working while going to school, not sleeping because of stress or fear or pain. Add in 2 hours of commuting if you have to take public transit. I live in Toronto, which is considered a great city for transit, and unless you live and work on the subway, it's at least an hour to get anywhere by transit during rush hour. When my car was working, I was able to get a lot of stuff done during the week. When it died, my life went with it. All my shopping and other errands had to be done on the weekend. There was no time left in the week. Story 27. Getting a job and moving out at 18 isn't as easy as people on Reddit think it is. My abusive boomer dad constantly bragged to my mom and I about how he moved out at 18 and was fully self-sufficient with a car, an apartment, etc. This was also in the 70s, and my grandparents were and are still loaded. Surprise, surprise, his college education was fully paid for. He ended up dropping out, and his very own apartment was being paid for by his roommate's rich parents. My grandparents also bailed him out multiple times by paying off his mountains of credit card debt when he was in his late 50s, and lending us money every Christmas. My mom thinks they helped with the down payment on our old house, too. My parents then got divorced when I was 18, and my grandparents funded his lawyer. Story 28. What to do if you'll ever find yourself in a month without money. Everybody can lose money and become poor, but it feels a bit more safe if you already went through it and know how to survive with as little as possible. When you realize the money is running out, and the first thing to do is sit down and come up with a plan. Do you drive to work? Can you carpool, walk, bike, public transportation? Focus on the cheapest option. If you absolutely must drive, download a gas price tracker like GasBuddy to find the closest, cheapest station. Finally, only drive to and from work or other necessities, and that's it. Make every mile count. Food is easier to handle. Make a list of food pantries in your area. Find out which ones are weekly, twice a month, or monthly. If you have bi-weekly pantries, hit them up, and then on the off weeks, hit the monthly ones. You'll end up getting food every week this way. If you've already got some basic spices at home, you'll do pretty well and shouldn't have to get much from stores. Finally, just because you don't have money doesn't mean you can't get some. Jewelry, electronics, etc. can all be sold or used as collateral for pawn loans. You can also go to a sperm bank that needs donations. The easier option is to sell your plasma though, since it's probably more likely that there's a plasma donation center in your area. You should know that plasma donation centers can turn you away for almost anything. You should always eat 2 hours before donating, but if you don't have food, don't mention that to them. When it comes to the cheap food you can afford, those foods can offset your levels or make your blood too thick. So make sure you're drinking plenty of water for at least a few hours before the donation, but not too much water. A good rule of thumb is to drink half your body weight, but in ounces. So long as you aren't going over 1 liter per hour, you should be okay. Every donation center should also have water and snacks like granola bars for whoever needs them, so don't be afraid to ask. You can ask for them before donating to make sure your levels are good, or after donating if you say you feel queasy. Story 29. Here's a few things you learn on the street. 2 weeks on the street will completely destroy your average pair of shoes. What it's like being unable to go inside to escape the freezing cold for more than 48 hours at a time, knowing the location of every church, library, police station, and shelter within walking distance. Cardboard is an excellent insulator and will keep you warm on the street if you've got nothing else. Pad the ground before you cover yourself, or you'll lose most of your heat to the concrete. You can eat ramen without cooking it. This is often known as ghetto cookies. Smokable cigarette butts are currency when you're poor enough. When giving someone Narcan to prevent an overdose, make sure they're lying on their back, not their side. Story 30. I live in a low-income neighborhood within a very affluent county. I'm from the low to middle income bracket. I've worked and attended both affluent and low-income majority schools. I noticed that people from the lower income have tighter-knit communities and the youth are more resilient. The affluent cannot accept minor setbacks and break over nothing, and if they're really affluent, their parents just straight up threaten to sue whenever something doesn't go their way. When they can't use their money to win, they go full Karen. The lower income are used to setbacks, accepting and powering through bad circumstances. Lower income people have a better sense of humor too, and often more empathy. These are, of course, all massive generalizations and just my observations. Story 31. We know the exact price of everything. You could probably raise the price multiple times on an everyday item and a rich person wouldn't even notice. A poor person would notice when something's 5 cents more expensive than before. By the time I was 10, my mom and I had a game where I would tally up the cart in my head as we went and tell her the total, including tax, when we got in line. Eventually, I was good enough to be within 50 cents every time. Anyways, this meant that when it was over a certain amount, we would have to go do a loop and put stuff back until we got to the right number. Eventually, I realized that right number was the amount of money my mom had. Please leave your story in the comments. I would also love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.